Welcome to Blinkers Off with your hosts, Jared Welch and Aaron Halterman.
What is up? What is up? I'm Jared Welch. He is not Aaron Halterman. That is Ryan Stillman, and this is Blinkers Off. What's up, man?
What's up, dude? We got a late scratch today, folks. Aaron Halterman scratched, so I decided, I got in on the also eligible. Let's see if I can be Rich Strike. Maybe I'll sneak up for some money for you today, Jared. We'll try our best.
Right, I decided to call in the big guns today, guys. Halterman, the Breeders' Cup went so poorly for Halterman. He got the hell out of. I think he's almost out of the country at this point. So he's out, and Ryan's in. Poor Ryan had to take the heat here. No, honestly, guys. We obviously we do this every year to kind of a recap of the Breeders' Cup, not just the Breeders' Cup, but any big racing event. We want to go through it, the good, the bad, the ugly, what was good, what was bad, the fun event, the fun, and it's like, listen, if you're gonna bring someone on, it's Ryan, because he was there. Ryan, you were there. So first and foremost, we'll get into like the details of the racing here in a little bit, but how was the Breeders' Cup?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I was live on site, and I think we got a few shout-outs here. You guys have such a big fan base. I can't even. Hey, Michael. Yes, I got to shout out a few people here. It's crazy how much Dudes Nation is just all over the racetrack. I was there covering it for the Dudes and also covering it for one of my jobs, which works with my racehorse. And let's talk about some of the people I met. We got the Racing Dudes Hottie Squad here of Shoddy, Alex, and Haley. They were incredible. They are just the sweetest people out there, holding it down for the girl gang, the dudettes over there. I met Michael, who's in our fantasy Racing Dudes League as well. Nicest guy in person. I met the Dorman family because I'm working on something.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like, talk about the sweetest people. They're exactly what you see on TV in real life. They're just wonderful, and blessings out to them. They were there to present the Dirt Mile Trophy. Yeah, I mean, there's too many people to mention, but it was so nice to see. I'd go to parties at night for the My Racehorse stuff and meet people, and they'd be talking about the interview you guys did with John White and how much they love your show. Like, just, you guys have fans everywhere. And the Breeders' Cup was fantastic. And I'm so excited to sort of give the perspective of what it was like on the ground there, being there in person versus at home where you guys were able to watch this year. And I think this is going to be a great recap show,
I'll tell you what, this is it's one of the, we were talking about it a little bit before we hopped here on air, and it was just we knew going in it had the potential of being one of the better Breeders' Cups ever. And from a kind of it was great racing, but I think we all can, from everyone I've talked to, I mean, yeah, there's been some big hits for sure, but it was a tough Breeders' Cup. Just overall tough to read. You maybe hit this one, miss this one. Some of the stars did not deliver like we some of them did. We'll get into that here shortly, but it was a tough Breeders' Cup. And so I think it, looking back, it's like, this is a good show to kind of digest it all. And then not just that, we have, the horse of the year, I think it should be wrapped up. We'll talk about that. But the 3-year-old of the year made it even more muddy, maybe after that performance. We'll have a good debate on that. But no, I don't know about you, but there was like both days, really. It was like, okay, on Friday, I thought like Victoria was unbelievable. So she kind of helped, but there was some of the racing, like, in the turf, juvenile turf sprint, that was like, I could never have got there. And then you go flash forward to Saturday, and the classic was the classic. We'll get into that. The turf kind of lived up to what you thought. So just kind of back and forth all day. And then that last stretch after the classic, after like the 4 other races after were just a shit show. I mean, really, like, it wasn't like the most insane. That was the other thing. We didn't have like these most insane, improbable, can't believe that horse won. But in the same regard, it was like, just hard to get there with some of these horses. Like, you never really had like I can't believe that horse won, but you also had like, okay, I can't believe that horse won, but in that sequence, and you can't get them all right.
You couldn't have said it better, Jared. And I'll just, to piggyback on what you said, being there on the ground floor, I'm around people that like their life is handicapping, right? Like, they have their day jobs. Some of them, their day jobs are in racing, and they're just phenomenal. They're the best of the best. This is what the Breeders' Cup brings out. And I'd hear, I mean, they'll give you an example like, I need Motorius to win. My whole Breeders' Cup hinges on this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how are you going to get that? I feel like Cogburn's a lock. And then you see like, oh, maybe by DQ you get there, but like, no. And my point is, guys, like, the Breeders' Cup brings out like, if racing is a mathematical equation, it brings out like the Oppenheimers of the game. And they were, I was around them all weekend and they were bombing. They were like, no, I'm done. Ways and Means was my biggest bet.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just throw your hands up and you're like, I'm amongst the best of the best at doing this. I mean, for goodness sake, you had John White. To me, there's no better that's ever walked this earth. Like, he is just the master of every aspect of this game. And, even him on your podcast saying, it'd be the biggest, to me, Cogburn's my best bet. And there you go. And it's like, I'm never going to be as good as John White at this. I'm going to try my best to be my best.
Yeah.
But when guys like that are getting outthought, or not outthought, but, when guys like the great John White are having a Breeders' Cup moment like that happen, forgive me for wording this wrong.
Yeah, no.
What are we mere mortals supposed to do? It's racing, and you just go, it was that kind of Breeders' Cup. Hopefully you guys were able to capitalize on a few great races here and there, but all around me at the track, that was the vibe I got, was like, I cashed here and I bombed everywhere else. That was the vibe, Jared.
Well, yeah, because even if you want to use like the classic pick 5 as the example here, and there's all kinds of examples throughout the weekend, it's like, okay, let's say you got to Sierra Leone, which isn't improbable. Like, if you would have gone a couple deep, I don't know many people that would have had the stones, a single Sierra Leone in the classic, but let's say you went 3 deep, you could maybe have got there, right? But that also means you had to go thinner some other places, and all these other ones like Moira winning. That's like, okay, could have got there, but you also had to beat like, Cinderella's Dream, and you also had to beat Warlike Goddess and Content and whatever. Okay, so then you got that, and then you had to get to Straight No Chaser, which I know is a big horse for you, but you had to beat a couple other horses in there as well. And that was such a tough race on paper. And then, hey, notable speech. A lot of people single, mine included. Okay, lost. Got to get to more than looks. Also, not a huge improbable winner, but also like the point of it is like these horses that were winning weren't improbable, but because they were unlikely, like on the top end, you didn't had no singles winning these races. It made it really difficult to put together 3-4 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same logic that you would apply to maybe get to one of those upsets, you'd have to think a certain way that it wouldn't apply to all those other races. It's just you couldn't get there. I'm sorry, I'm glad people did, but most people could not get there. And the best of the best, like I said, I'm sitting around there and they're frustrated and just going, oh, it's that kind of day. Yeah. And what's funny, I think as well, Jared, just as a fan of the sport, this was a really interesting Breeders' Cup because so many awards were on the line. I mean, other than Thorpedo Anna, like pretty much every award category was like, it's going to be determined at the Breeders' Cup. And pretty much other than Thorpedo Anna, nothing that you felt like super strong about probably came to pass for the most part, if you're a fan in this, right? I mean, here and there, of course, but it was just a weird, like, it felt like everyone fumbled on the 1 yard line of their championship as well in front of you. It was just...
Yeah. And honestly,
chaos.
And she delivered, but the same regard, like that race completely fell apart in a sense before it even started, right? With scratches and Medic not even running, and then of course the scratch of the Japan horse. And so really, like, she had it for her. And I mean, who knows if that would have mattered, but she was dominant. And really, if you want to look at the whole thing, like, she was the one that came into the race with her particular race with probably the most pressure in a sense, and delivered. So that was like the shining star. And it's kind of fitting that she probably is horse of the year now, and she dominated and had a great year. But we'll get into that, guys. So let's get it. We're going to go through every race, some of them longer than others, but we will touch on all of them. We're going to look at the 41st Annual Breeders' Cup World Championships from Del Mar. What were some of the best and worst performances? What betting wins and mistakes were made? Who solidified Horse of the Year honors? We'll answer these questions and much, much more. Let's go. All right, let's bring it up. Let's just start with Friday. And again, we'll go through some of these more than others. Some of them not exactly the biggest races, but we'll touch on a few of them, and we'll pull up some replays for some of them as well while we're chatting about it. Let's kick things off with Friday. Let's see here. I think it was race 6. Yeah. Race 6. There we go. Let's see. Let's do that. All right. All right, Friday, race 6 kicked things off for the Breeders' Cup this year, and that was the Juvenile Turf Sprint. This was one that, had been, if you follow the trends, it is one that is, speed. And a horse that I loved going into it, Akuro Sig for the Japan, was the beginning of the end for Japan in the very first race, right? Japan did not have a good showing at the Breeders' Cup. And Akuro Sig just was not good whatsoever. Was, I think, one of, if not the only Japan horse that went off as a favorite on the 2 days, but did not run well at all. Magnum Force at 12-1, 27-1. Arizona Blaze finished second. Governor Sam was third. Was Governor Sam tried to hold up on the trend aspect, being a speed horse, but just couldn't quite hold on. The fractions were insane. So Magnum Force winning, not a lot to talk about with this one. But again, started off the day kind of like, okay, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think you said it well. Actually, hats off to Governor Sam, though, while we're on that topic. I thought he ran extremely well. I don't think everybody really expected him to get in the money. That was the vibe I was getting from a lot of people I was talking to throughout the weekend. Akuro Sig, yeah, man, one of my worst bets of the weekend. I really liked this horse. And sort of, yeah, it was almost like this was predicting, like you said, Japan's troubles, call them disappointments for the Breeders' Cup. But overall, this was a nice win, by the way. After you get through all of this was a very nice win. Interesting horse to get to, right? He lined up against some horses who had beaten him in the past in races, and just put it all together today. He's been around in even those losses. And look, I mean, he had Ireland's champion jockey for the 6th consecutive time on his back. He was 12-1, and his trainer Lyons, this was his first win from 3 attempts. And it was really nice overall. But I think for a lot of bettors, they weren't enjoying the story. They were sitting there ripping up tickets in disgust at this. But that's all I got to say as far as the stats go for me.
It was frustrating from, like, for the most part, I felt like my runners, like for my personal picks, did well, but there was certain races, and this was one of them. And obviously, kicking things off, where you're like, "Oh, that was great." Akuro Sig, I'm so glad I bet that horse. I was legitimately excited for this horse, and obviously based on the odds, a lot of people were as well. Just never, and it was a very similar story to a lot of these horses from Japan. Just from the jump, was clearly not fast enough, was not good enough, and then just, didn't do any running late. So and this, I'll tell you what, man, this is turning into a tricky trend to figure out. And it's one of the newest, it is the newest race of all. So the trends is harder to come up with, but there for a while it was, we talked about this on Blinkers Off. It was like American Speed. Well, that was because you didn't have a lot of Euros coming in for this kind of race, and then it's like, okay, we had one outlier where it collapsed, and now we got another one. It's becoming a little trickier now with speed and these Euros of who actually. Maybe we just need Wesley Ward. We've seen Wesley Ward. If he's got one in, then that's it. But otherwise, there's really no trend. So, but hey, let's move on to the next, because this was one of the bigger races of the day, and this is, of course, the Juvenile Fillies. And Immersive was the favorite, and I thought was, again, a horse that. Should have won, but also there were some question marks, like how good is she? I thought she answered the bell and then some. Went off the heavy favorite at 2-1, or at least heavy as in the race goes. Clear favorite, I should say, and then just dominated, just dusted him.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And here's what's funny, Jared. I feel like this performance somewhat, guys, don't jump on me in the chat, got lost in the shuffle of like the day of the Friday Breeders' Cup live. At least I can only tell you how it looked. This was one of the more impressive wins of that Friday for me. She was still light years ahead going around the turn on the gallop out. Mm-hmm. This is a nice horse, man. Undefeated. I feel like I'm aware that this wasn't the most exciting on paper Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies we've ever seen. But I thought Nooney ran her eyeballs out for the start of this race. And obviously she wasn't going to win it the way this was unfolding. But Godolphin's got a nice one here, guys, and it's kind of reminding me a little bit of just I don't want to butcher this off the top of my head, but last year's 2-year-old champion for Mott, though, Fillies, just FYI, where people I don't think were really that excited, but she was undefeated and she did dang well in that Kentucky Oaks. And I wouldn't be shocked if going longer with immersive sort of like, I don't know, she just seems like a horse that keeps going and going, Jared. I wouldn't say it's like she's a grinder or something. I wouldn't be shocked if she's one of the better 3-year-old fillies as well. I really liked this performance. It's one of my better ones personally from the 2-year-olds we saw. And Brad Cox, I mean, Monomoy girl, idiomatic.
Yeah.
Did you kind of have that feeling at home around the track when this happened? People were like, dang, she just beasted today.
Yeah, I went from like, because I tried to beat her, which that was obviously really smart. And I was like, I went from trying to beat her to like even mid race. You're like, okay, this is the horse that I'm going to be betting throughout the spring next year, because you look, and again, I did not like her. I used her, but I think there were some question marks of how good she was, and I even said on the live show during the day when we were live. I was like, I do feel like I don't know if it's her or if it's one of these, like somebody's going to like romp, like it just kind of felt like one of these is going to show like, hey, this horse is way better than everybody else. And she definitely was that. And again, like you said, the connections. And one of the interesting parts about this horse or this race is that it favorites don't tend to win this race. It's just been a weird race at the Breeders' Cup. And the only two that do it were Equizulu and Songbird, and pretty damn good horses. So I do feel like her going off and winning as a favorite and doing it the way she did and being who she's trained by and owned by, this is a horse that, like you said, we're gonna see. Like the only thing keeping her out of the Kentucky Oaks is injury. That's really it. Because I think they got the talent. And yeah, Shotty, like if Sig was not bad enough, then you got American Bikini, who is just beyond bad. Not a good look. I don't know if you saw this, Ryan. We did this throughout the day. It turned into a huge hit where we had the rankings. Even Moira got on the list with the one Canada horse. We got a lot of shit for the flag we use for the Euro, because I don't know if there's a right flag to use, because you're grouping in Ireland and all of them. But anyways, that's what we did. Japan, big goose egg the whole 2 days. But this was so what we did is we would put that up and we'd play the Olympic theme. Olympic. Yeah, I think it's probably still on here. Let me see if I still have it. Yeah, here you go. So we did this every time. After every race, we updated the list, and people just got a huge kick out of it. So, but yeah, so there you go. That was not a good look for Japan there. Let's get to I personally believe, the race of the day, and maybe one of the races of the Breeders' Cup. And this was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. And, Lake Victoria came in and was one of the few horses that came in below even money and delivered and ran like below even money. And Lake Victoria, dude, was just came in with the hype and delivered, man. I mean, this was just, how was it being there watching her run down the stretch there at the Del Mar Turf Course?
Oh, it was so exciting. This was a great bet for me. Lake Victoria. I really thought when I bet this horse, did I make a mistake? Because for a second there, she got into a sort of position, at least live. And when you have money on it, you guys know when you put money on it and your horse isn't where you hoped they were, suddenly you're like, am I screwed? And it looks worse. But no, it didn't matter. I don't think where she wound up, because she just beasted here, found another gear. She's the best in the world at her age group, at this distance, at what she's doing. And look, I mean, the track erupted. It was the second Breeders' Cup winner in as many years for Judd Frankel, which is pretty exciting. I mean, in Spiral last year, now you have this. Yeah, I mean, this is the 15th win for Moore, and it was the 19th win for trainer Aidan O'Brien when it happened. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you pulled this up. It was just poetry in motion is what I would describe her as, man. She is special. Like, if you don't know what a good racehorse is and you showed someone this race, they'd be like, dang, she's nice, isn't she? You'd be like, yeah.
I mean, look at just, thought process was second choice, set the fractions, just obviously wasn't quite good enough here. But yeah, Lake Victoria, just, a lot of question marks, or not, maybe some question marks, as if the rail draw being a juvenile, if that would be too much, if that, we could get her in some trouble. And, that some of those had some issues over the 2 days of trips, but man, she certainly did not have any issue whatsoever. Not much really, she got out of the gate fine, which is always a big deal for these Euros, but I liked how forwardly placed she was, like didn't have to worry about running down everybody. Look, I mean, right now she's like fifth or sixth right there on the rail. She's the number one. You can see her there with there you go. She kicks out and boom, it's over. Once she kicked out here, I was like, okay, some of these Euros, man, the way they eat up turf, it's just insane. Like, it does not measure up with what we do, like when she got, look at that. I mean, just incredible effort, really.
Beautiful.
And Mayday ran really well. I thought that was a really nice performance for the 12 there, and made that thing somewhat respectable. But man, like the way like these Euros, like, and there's a few of them that didn't, right? But when you get them out in the stretch, it's just like, like from right here, it's like there's no way you're beating her.
No, and I like that you brought up the second place finisher here, Jared, because I mean, talk about like a horse, like all they did wrong was run into this monster this year, or they'd be a Breeders' Cup winner. Like, what a performance from the runner-up too. And sometimes that's just the luck of racing. But yeah, Lake Victoria, I think in most people's opinion around the track, that was the performance, of the day, as far as just like superstar.
Let's speak, like, as far as like the race of the day goes, at least on paper, was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which was race 9. And all the talk going in with, who is it? Is it East Avenue? Is it Chancellor McPatrick? Which one? Oh, and Bob Baffert had 3 horses in the race. Who cares? And East Avenue goes to his knees to start the race, and then Chancellor McPatrick really never even gets out of first gear behind the rest of the pack, and Bob Baffert damn near runs 1, 2, 3 in the race. Citizen Bull winning really pained me, because I was all over Gaming in this race. I thought he ran a good race, but Citizen Bull just, what do you think of this? How, what do you look at those horses moving forward?
I'm really excited to talk about this race, especially for all you guys who gamble out there. This is going to be a fun one for me, at least, to talk about. It's not fun to talk about the money I lost because I bet East Avenue, but it's fun to talk about this because, look, Citizen Bull has been a horse that's been talked about as a horse, not for this year, but next year, that is supposed to be very good. I'd heard those stories, like rumors, and the people that I trust that are like looking forward to the Derby, they like this horse for next year. So it's kind of exciting to me that this horse won here. I don't think he necessarily was the most expected Baffert of the group. I mean, clearly the odds are showing you that, but he could be next year a really big horse on the Derby trail, right? And so here he is, and he snatched the championship. But the story of this race is, Jared, I heard you guys on your show, half the field was undefeated coming into this race. None of them exited undefeated, which is sort of remarkable when you think of that. Like, because these were really good undefeated horses coming in on paper. And yeah, I feel like, look, Citizen Bull made every pole a winning one. He led from, just the start of this race. Part of that, I think, in part, you could tell me, Jared, but I think what might have happened, East Avenue right there, comes out, stumbles, right?
Yep.
Gate trouble. And I think that the race then changed shape, because I don't know if Baffert's plan maybe was like, look, I got 3 horses. Like, one of you guys has got to go with East Avenue or we lose. And then it was like, this horse just found himself on the lead in this spot by himself. You know what I mean, Jared? And you're going to take it. You're going to go.
Yeah. And I think even more so, like, from someone that I loved Gaming because I thought he would sit the perfect trip, and he did. Look at him. He's perfect spot. But I also expected Citizen Bull to be, whether it be Citizen Bull or Getaway Car, whichever one, I expected them to put pressure on East Avenue, right? So them kind of soften each other up, Gaming kind of be the reap the benefits of that. And that didn't happen, like you said. Instead, Citizen Bull did his job. He went to the lead, and no one was there, and he took it, right? And it's not like you're going to see Gaming and Citizen Bull go out there and knock heads, right? The 2 Bafferts. So the way it fell apart in East Avenue, like you said, was the complete, problem there with that. And, who knows? Like, he could have, would he have won if he broke? Maybe. I mean, there's no way to know. But him breaking that way and falling to his knees and it completely changed the race from there.
Yeah, and credit to Citizen Bull at the same time, right, Jared? I think you would say that too. I mean, it's really impressive. These are nice. Look, coming in, it's easy to change it now, but this is a nice Breeders' Cup juvenile field. And look at him, like even live, the people were like, dang, he kicked their ass. And he kind of did, right? Like, I think Gaming's a nice horse, and look, he's just better.
Yeah. I mean,
and by the way, watch for the horse who gets third here. Sorry, I just want to point this out. Really impressive performance from Hill Road, who rallied from last of 10th to tag, getaway car to get third by a neck. That's a very nice performance too. Sorry, Jared, I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, that was, and I think that's one thing about it that I would be pretty frustrated with. I don't know if this shows the start at all. I don't know if it's going to. I don't think it does. No. Is that in the feed on NBC did not show very well, but if you're watching it on the simulcast, like I was, it was so bad. Like the way East Avenue literally fell to his knees. I think you have to be a little disappointed with East Avenue and Chancellor McPatrick here. And you can say, well, East Avenue fell to his knees. He's got an excuse. Yes, he does. But dude, he and Chancellor, I think he's got more of an excuse than Chancellor, to be very clear. But you just said the way he closed, Chancellor did none of that, Like, I think that was a very disappointing, his issue going in this race was, well, he's going to run into a field where he can't quite get there, like he's running against these good horses. That tactic may not work. Well, I mean, what excuse did he have here? Like he should have at least ran third or fourth. He made no ground whatsoever. And I don't know about you, and I get their juveniles. And so there is the kind of the silver lining, they have time, but like a really good horse gets a bad trip and still runs his race. Like a decent horse, like a pretty good one, like okay horse, if they don't break well, if something goes wrong, it's over for them. And East Avenue, you would have liked to seen him at least make some effort in the race, but I mean, shit, he didn't do any of that. And once that broke, you hate when a horse just doesn't break and it's over.
I think you put that perfectly. By the way, watching this again live, I mean, here he is, this horse in purple, and you see him still towards the back of the field, who's about to get third. He's now angling to the outside. He's in fourth right now if you're watching, and it's like, how could Chancellor not do that, is your point, Jared, right? I mean, look at him. He's hauling ass to get third here. And I think the final thing I'll say is this, and why I was excited for all the bettors out there that maybe you're watching, and I'm sure they're everybody in the audience pretty much. I think that the Citizen Bull horse is a serious horse. I really do, Jared. Will he win the Derby? I don't know. But look, Bob Baffert, after being banned from this thing for years, he's back with a vengeance, I'm sure. And what we saw there, to me, to finish with 3 of the top 4 in one of the better juveniles coming into it, at least on paper, that it looked like in the last decade, if not of all time. I mean, this was really touted that highly, right, Jared? I'm not crazy. To come in there, I think if you're somebody out there and you're looking for some future bets, the Citizen Bull, I get it. He might be the favorite now because he won this and he's champion, but he also might be a horse that you're looking at some good odds somewhere. And same with the other Bafferts. I think time will tell possibly that this was a little bit of a better field, but a lot of people were disappointed because they're looking at East Avenue and looking at Chancellor. Now I could be wrong. Most of the times this doesn't turn out to be that way, but sometimes we can get caught up when our horses disappoint us and kind of give up. And if one thing John White's taught last year with Fierceness was a horse that it was like people gave up on, came into the Breeders' Cup and beasted, is sometimes if you guys really liked anyone in this field, and I'm not saying they'll be the next year's Derby horses, none of them I'm saying that. What I'm saying is if you liked someone and they didn't perform well here, don't throw them out just based on this. Like, horses have off days, and maybe your horse is still there. That's my takeaway from this.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time, Citizen Bull he closed because they closed the first future wager at either the day of or the day before, I can't remember, of this race, and he closed at Citizen Bull closed at 29-1. And so if you did take that action, now the issue that's going to be the case for anyone, and that we know this is the what we have to deal with, which Baffert will get there. Which Baffert will be there? Which one stay? Will we see Citizen Bull or Gaming ever again as a 3-year-old? You just don't know with these Baffert horses. So that is the risk anytime you play these future wagers on these Bafferts. It's like a lot of these horses, you look at like Chancer McPatrick or even like an East Avenue, like the way they're trained. Like East Avenue is a great example. Like he's gonna do it's right. He's gonna get it might be frustrating to own that horse in fantasy, right? But he's gonna have some opportunities. Whereas you could draft Citizen Bull and you may not see him again until March or April, and you don't know. Also, with him having a full cast of horses, like you mentioned, like this is going to be a tour de force of getting. He's going to try to get 20 horses. All 20 horses are going to be trying to be Bafferts. He's back, baby. You don't know like where they're going to be placed and which races they're going to be in. So that is going to be the tough part of figuring that out. Having said that, I mean, Citizen Bull, like doesn't he remind you a little bit of like a Medina Spirit type horse or something like that, where it's like you never really thought he was very good and kind of underappreciated him, but then it's like, yeah, this horse just does what he does and runs, right? And so I think Citizen Bull is that horse a little, like he is legit. I think Gaming's like maybe the difference of that race, dude, was that Gaming missed that race, right? That missed that last prep. Citizen Bull was a little more fit. I think it showed a little bit like the end of that race. Gaming couldn't quite get there to make it, finish it off. And maybe Citizen Bull was a little bit more fit. And so I think that could have been the difference. So I like both of them. Getaway Card to me seems like, I mean, he ran better this time, I guess, but I think he's a one-turn horse.
I think you said it great. And I think the big takeaway again, I think it's interesting, Jared, because some of these horses just don't like Del Mar. That's the other thing that can get you too. You go, and I'm excited to talk about that when we discuss Sierra Leone later, who might have not liked Saratoga.
Yeah, no shit. Right. All right, let's get to the last one here and we'll hop on over to Saturday. This was the Juvenile Turf, which is always a fun race. And my top pick, I got a top pick home. I did get Lake Victoria as well, but this one, almost got 4-1. It's just a tough betting field. So you got the prices you wanted, but Henry, how do you say that? Henry Matisse won this race, and I thought it looked pretty damn good doing it. Not a lot. We knew going into this, you didn't have real big star power. Zulu Kingdom for us was our kind of star. New Century was nice. I mean, there's some nice ones, but you didn't coming into it. Didn't feel like the Euros brought maybe their best horses here, but Aiden O'Brien got the job done here with this one.
Yeah, not much to say. We've seen this movie before. Aiden O'Brien. We've seen this film. New horse, same movie. That's the story to me.
Yeah, there was not there's not. I didn't feel like there was a lot to digest here. I was happy with the performance. Let's move into. I want to get to Saturday because that's obviously where the real racing got going. Let me pull it up. And again, while we're going through this, guys, if there's a particular race or a particular bet or something that you just need to air out some dirty laundry, like we're here to listen. Ryan's a very good listener. You can't tell that already. All right, we moved to Saturday, and this is race 4. So we kick things off here with the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. And, just a cool Soul of an Angel at nearly 20-1 to kick things off. Ways and Means just sucked, really. And even if you're like, okay, I'm going to beat her, well, you probably tried it with Society, or you probably tried it with Celia or Vava or whoever. Nope, none of them. Soul of an Angel, who circled the field and got, by the way, got Staffy Joseph's first Breeders' Cup win ever. So what did you guys, how did the crowd react to this one?
Well, interesting thing, and maybe this could cheer up some people who lost money. One of the sharpest guys I know, and I'm not going to name names, but a handicapper who's won like at one contest like $70,000, $100,000, really good, came up to me. He's like, I said, hey, will I see you around? He goes, it depends. If the 9 wins here, you won't be seeing me because I'm going to be busy at the contest. If he loses, you can call me all day. We'll talk. So, one of the sharper guys I know, just right out the gate, heartbroken. The crowd reacted the same way. I think I didn't, anyone, it's funny when you have a price like this happen, because you hear the crowd go, oh, and then you hear one woman go, oh my gosh, and you're like, okay, so someone cashed. That's one of them. It was one of those kind of races. But to Soul of an Angel's credit, I remember Soul of an Angel. She had a great battle with Idiomatic earlier in the season, right? Hard knocking horse, very cool horse. Safi Joseph's fans must have been happy. This was his first Breeders' Cup win. And, I think that's the story as far as it goes here. Nice horse. And yeah, just put it together on the day. A hard horse that, kind of, Jared, looking back when you piece it all together, it feels like I'm okay with Soul of an Angel being a Breeders' Cup winner. And I don't fault anyone for not having this horse at the same time.
Yeah, man. It was like, again, that says it perfectly, because it was like, you didn't, us watching it live, you're like, yeah, I'm not really surprised. I mean, if Ways and Means was losing, then it's like, okay, well, there's options, right? Now, having said that, it would have been tough to get to Soul of an Angel. The thing that she had going for was it was like a class relief thing. It was not just a class relief thing, because this obviously is a grade 1 in Breeders' Cup, but like the fact that you're, been knocking heads with the Idiomatic and like clearly doesn't want to go that far or whatever. And now you're cutting back and like have some different things happening. We're like, okay, this may be the perfect spot for her. And, the trend of this race is that you can't, speed doesn't win. I was 1000% against Society. That's why I liked Ways and Means. I thought she would sit a nice trip off of it. And then, so not only does speed not win, but it's the horse that's like, dude, we were watching it live. We're like, Soul of an Angel wasn't even in the picture, like, because she broke poorly, missed the break and everything. And like they had like the gap and they had everyone and then they had her. Like you couldn't even see her. And then I think even Somich or someone was like, yeah, I mean, so, something's clearly not right with her, or something's gone wrong, or, it's not going to beat her or whatever. And then it's like they turn for home and you're like, oh shit, look at this. And here she comes flying and wins. So it was just, not only did she win, she won by a half. It wasn't even that close really at the end.
Yeah, it was a great performance by her. If you were on her, you got your thrill and your money at the end of it. But yeah.
Yeah, it was, and the fractions were just insane, which obviously set it up. Speaking of fractions, let's get to the disappointment. It's a good thing Halterman's not here for this one, because this was tough for him watching it live. I felt for him. I loved Cogburn myself. I think everyone in the country loved Cogburn going into this. And the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, Starlust wins this race at 33-1 over Matorius, who just continues to run well but not get the job done in these big ones. Silver Bullet finished 3rd, Star Mystery 4th, and there's Cogburn at 0.8 as your favorite. This horse, I mean, where are you at with this? Because you kind of flashed through. Oh, by the way, Bradsell, the biggest threat, last place. So it kind of felt like Cogburn, if you watch that race, it was like, okay, Cogburn annihilated Bradsell, ruined, he tried to run with them, didn't work. Then Bradsell was like, fuck this, I'm out. But Cogburn was maybe just, he didn't have that kick that we're used to seeing.
I think you said it perfectly. I'm really sad about Cogburn. I think a lot of people really love that horse, and it being his last race and to go out like he did. But it was a very weird race, Jared. I mean, I was there live, and as that horse, they had the issue before the race where they had these horses standing at the post. And I don't know about you, I always get kind of nervous when I'm excited to see a race, because you're like, how does that affect things? And I'm not making an excuse. It just, if there's ever something that was an omen, I kind of had a bad gut feeling. I'm like, I don't know. And maybe that just was me. This was a long shot win. This team, the trainer and the jockey, had just won the ARC. So, I mean, this is a very good group that did it, but it'd be hard to get there. Yeah, I mean, let's take a look here, Jared. What went through your mind? Because I can kind of walk through what the crowd was thinking live.
I mean, nothing like other than like perfect. Like he's doing his thing. Cogburn, we know, he's going to go fast. Like you don't even, with him, you don't really even look at the fractions, like you don't worry about that, because he's how fast he is. I thought the biggest thing was when Bradsell was like, and let me back it up just a little bit. When Bradsell, when he got out of the gate and Bradsell's like, all right, well, I'm going to go with you right here. And then quickly realized I can't do that. A lot of people have wanted to fault Irad for the ride. He went too fast. What was he supposed to do? This is the way the horse runs. And then, Bradsell just ruined Bradsell right there. And Bradsell goes backwards from there. He's 1-9 in this spot. Cogburn. Heck, how does he lose, right? The Cogburn that we've been seeing all year wins this thing going away. He just hit a wall. Like I don't know if it was the whole year got to him or what, but the Cogburn we've been seeing all year, no way loses that race.
It's heartbreaking in a lot of ways too, Jared, because we have this really weird thing that's happened now with champion older male horse, and that can go to anybody. It can go to a dirt horse. It can go, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I just kind of just feel like I would have loved to have seen him gone out and been in that discussion. And it's a heartbreaker. I was standing with some Europeans going, no, this horse is he might be the best doing this of all time. And then you kind of have to Homer Simpson into the bushes, if you know that GIF, shortly after. But, kudos to this horse. I blame no one. Look, you couldn't logically expect what we just saw to happen. Even if you picked Starlust, you would think, okay, well, he's going to beat Cogburn on the wire. You couldn't get there, I don't think, the way it unfolded. It's hard to watch.
He lost from there. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's if you like. I know John Love was his best bet of the Breeders' Cup, and I know he was probably thinking the same thing we were thinking watching it. Because again, you don't with a horse like that, and go look at when he broke the world record. I mean, the fractions are the same, right? It's not like he did something different, like where it's like, oh wow, he went too fast finally. No, I mean this is what he does. He just couldn't finish the job. And it's tough because, and this is a key point of not just him losing, but the Breeders' Cup in a nutshell. It's like, if you were against him, we liked him. But if you were against him and you're like, hey, I think he's vulnerable. This Brad Sale is the real deal, whatever. It's tough to get to Starlust. Not impossible. We talked about how much you use Starlust. We talked about Starlust a little bit because he kind of was like, well, if you like so I can't remember the horse in the race. Was one of them that I think it was who was it? It was one of the horses in the race that was like, well, if you like him, you got to like Starlust a little bit because he's barely beating Starlust overseas. And so it was like, okay, you kind of talk your way into that. But again, it's like, okay, there's so many people that probably were right to beat Cogburn, but still lost the race because of the kind of the improbable result. Now, one thing about it, we talked about, it's like, what is, because remember Jackie's Warrior? Like every time he'd have this hell of a year, unbeatable, trained by Asmussen, and like would get to the Breeders' Cup and just sucked, right? Just like could not get the job done in the Breeders' Cup. And unfortunately, you wanted him so badly to win because of the years he would have going into the Breeders' Cup. Couldn't get it done. And Cogburn, very similar, just couldn't get the job done on the biggest stage. Which is important. It sucks because he's had, such a huge year.
Well, yeah, I think that's a phenomenal comparison. I mean, there's so much there with the trainer and look, and I apologize, I misspoke earlier because it used to be champion older male, and it could be a turf horse or a dirt horse. They've changed that to champion older dirt male and champion turf. But, back then when you could choose whatever, he would have been my choice for the year had he won this, no doubt, to be champion older male. Man, watching this, it's just heartbreaking because if you followed racing in the United States this year, he's a horse you grew to love. And you kind of felt deserved his chance against a field like this, which showed up and gave him a great test. And you wanted this story to end differently. But that's why you got to appreciate horses like Thorpedo Anna, horses that go out and get the job done when the bright lights are on and the awards are on the line. Don't you, Jared?
There you go. Perfect segue. It's like you know what you're doing here. By the way, a lot of people interested on your pronunciation of GIF versus GIF. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. I call it GIF with a G. You say GIF. I think I've never heard it being one way or the other, but there is a little chatter in the chat about that.
Listen, I'll change it right now. I'm a man. I'd like to say I'm smarter before this. That's what we're going with. Lesson learned, chat. Lesson learned, chat.
I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just how I pronounce it. But all right. Oh, sorry. I should have brought that back up. All right. Thorpedo Anna goes into the race. We know going in that if she wins, she's at least in the driver's seat, or at least first in the clubhouse, so to speak, for Horse of the Year. Obviously, Fierceness could have changed that. But Thorpedo Anna comes in. We had the scratch in the morning of Awesome Result, which was a bummer, but based on how Japan ran, maybe save some face a little bit. And then Matic never even making it to the race was a bummer. But, listen, regardless of that, they still got to go and run. Raging Sea tried to do something different and tried to put pressure on Thorpedo Anna. I don't necessarily think they thought they would run on the lead, but she did. And, man, just this is one of those that you never once, at least I didn't, I never thought she was losing that race from the time they broke to the end of the race.
Yeah, it's funny. I go back to when I remember American Pharaoh won the Triple Crown, and that day, I don't know about you, Jared, I woke up, I'm like, no, we're seeing it today. Like, it was nothing like any of the other attempts, and you just were confident with this. You can answer that too, Jared. Did you have that vibe? That day?
Yeah. Well, and it fell apart. Like I said, again, awesome result being out that morning, and then no idiomatic. I mean, idiomatic beats Raging Sea. Like, I mean, she did get beat by her, but the two of the better is definitely idiomatic. Thorpedo, and it just felt, and it had the lone speed, it seemed like, and it was like, listen, if she's gonna get beat, she's gonna get beat, but there's like, she would have to fire like a C plus race for her to lose here. So she didn't, obviously. I would say she ran like an A. I mean, who knows? She never ran out of first gear. But definitely solidified herself. It would have been awesome to see her in idiomatic in there, because I think the pace would have been wildly different. Her have to sit off of that. Having said that, I would never say that she would have lost, because I still think she would have won. It was just great to see after Cogburn's disappointment hitting this one.
The place erupted live, Jared. It was like, this is name it, your superstar, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Like, people love this horse. And I'll be honest, I had no idea that she was going to come back next year. And I'm really thrilled about that, because I wanted to see her versus idiomatic, but I think for the long campaign she's had, to have this be the ender, it's a nice resting kind of race for her. Not that this was easy, but I think there were horses in there that were going to give her a lot more trouble. Idiomatic, a Dairy Manor, or Dairy Man. I've always tried, but I think it might help her next year to come back and be strong. Whereas if she had to just gut it out for one final race to win this and either lose, which might have cost her the championship, because to me, there's no doubt, Jared, she's horse of the year. But or just gutted her as far as, like, coast to coast, it felt like traveling vibes she didn't have, but you know what I mean? 7 starts where she's doing this, that, and the third. I feel like this was the right way for her to come back next year and hopefully not have had much taken out of her after a long campaign. And look, for McPeek, talk about a year just you dream of in racing. He's going to have the horse of the year. He's going to have the champion in her. But he also, this was his very first Breeders' Cup win in 37 starts, I believe. It was also his first Derby. I mean, this guy.
Yeah. He's won the Derby and the Oaks. I mean, just insane. Won every, big race for the, Fillies. Won at Oaklawn, where he trains at Oaklawn. Won at Parks, won at Saratoga, won at Del Mar now, and by the way, and the way he managed, we give him a lot of shit, but he's a good guy to root for too in the sport, because he's a good horseman. But he managed her perfectly all year. I think the way, a lot of people and a lot of, in our, on our live feed, wanted her to be in the Classic, and I was like, I don't think so. I'm glad she's not, because what does she need to prove? One, I think she would have lost the Classic, and two, he knew, he gave that a shot, right? He gave it a shot, tried against the boys in the Travers, damn near won, and it was like, okay, fine, we tried it. Now here's the result, or here's the path now the rest of the year. Here's our path to winning horse of the year, by the way. So I thought that he did it perfectly. The way he spaced out the races, where he entered her, giving that shot, that. I think that's a very sportsman thing to do, to give that shot to her and to the fans to see how she fared against the boys in the Travers, which, by the way, she damn near beat the horse that damn near won the Breeders' Cup Classic as well. So just an insanely good horse and good year, like you said. I mean, my gosh, McPeek will never match what he did this year.
Absolutely. And one last thought, Jared, I know I want to move on. When you see this Breeders' Cup and how many horses didn't show up that you might have placed a bet down for, to have her run every single time this year, you just got to appreciate it. I don't care who you are. I don't care what horse you're handed to. You cannot train a horse to do that. The best in the world are showing you that it's not that easy. McPeek, congratulations. Congratulations to Thorpedo Anna. And congratulations to all of us in racing. What a phenomenally fun storyline she was all year. No problem with her being horse of the year. She's a champion. She deserves it.
Totally. And yeah, Shoddy, I think she is like quintessential, the perfect apple blossom horse, right? She's going to be the horse of the year. She's going to be the 3-year-old of the year, Philly's 3-year-old of the year. It's McPeek. He trains at Oaklawn. Like, there's no way it's $1 million. It's a grade 1, huge race at Oaklawn. There's no chance that horse is not trying to go to the apple blossom. We see it all the time with these big horses. So I think that's a good one. And, honestly, dude, like you said, showed up every time, even when it didn't go her way. Like we just talked about earlier with East Avenue. And I know it's not fair to compare because he is a juvenile, but it's like sometimes when you look at the Travers, things didn't go her way very well. She had a lot of reasons in that race going against the boys for the first time, grueling, this tough test, and could have had every right and every reason to say, you know what, it ain't happened today. Like she's not going to do it. And what does she do? She comes out and goes after fierceness. She battles down and almost gets there and beats him. And that is like that's the difference between like a really good filly and a superstar type filly. And so she's just an incredible horse. I have a little chills talking about her because I think she is that caliber of horse. And I agree. So as we look at the day, like we know, okay, she did her job. She came in, check mark, boom. But it's still up to Fierceness to see what he does. We'll get to that race in a second. But next, we had the Turf and Rebels Romance. The talk here of the Turf was like, okay, Rebels Romance has won this race. He won it 2 years ago when it was at Keeneland. And, certainly deserved to be favorite. Like every chance here to win. But at the same time, you're like, well, there's some options in here where you can try to beat them, particularly other horses from overseas. It was very interesting that you had Wingspan and Emily Upjohn choosing to run here versus the Filly and Mare Turf. But at the end of the day, Rebels Romance. This is what do you think watching this live? Because he was a little keen early and made things interesting late.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Early, it was like, oh no, this isn't what I want to see from him. Absolutely, Jared. And look, I mean, what an interesting horse this Rebels Romance is. I mean, he's won this race now on multiple occasions, which is this is so hard. I mean, it really is an incredible feat. And my goodness, the Japanese runners, talk about, they showed out here, man.
They finally put one together for the Breeders' Cup, and obviously ran huge, especially Roshan Park at 22-1, and was flying late and damn near got there. But this horse just had a little too much left late. But watching it live, you're like, oh shit, this is bad. This is really bad because this horse was so keen early. This horse wanted to go to the lead, and I thought William Buick did probably save the day, honestly, because he was able to get the horse to calm down, but at the same time didn't like do one of these like where you just pull the horse straight back and like, no, we're not going to get up here on the lead. Let him run early, but like within himself, so to speak, versus like being super keen. So that really saved the day because it gave him enough to kind of separate at the top of the stretch and then hold on. As a backer of Emily Upjohn, oh my gosh, like this hurt me because if you watch, like, let me pull up the replay, but when you watched it, like I don't know if she ever ran, like, because she had nowhere to run the whole entire race. And so that was a little disappointing because I don't know that she would have won. Same time, like she may have, because you literally learn nothing by watching her in that race.
It's an interesting thing, Jared. I mean, I think this race was a pretty interesting race because look, Buick, he's visited the winner's circle 9 times now in the Breeders' Cup, like you said. So clearly he did a phenomenal job. And 5 of those happen to be at Del Mar. So 5 of his 9 wins have come at Del Mar. So it's like the guy you want for it. This horse is the first horse to win this race multiple times in non-consecutive years. It's happened twice before. Conduit from Ireland and High Chaparral have done, they've multiple winners. But my point is, he's in good company, this horse, and kind of a horse that I don't know that he's talked about. Yeah, I'm glad we're watching this because in his own way, I mean, what a neat horse. He's traveled the whole globe, this horse, and had something left on the biggest stage. Where's your horse right now, Jared? Or like walk us through it. So I would love you to.
So Emily Upjohn was the 2 and basically broke, the horse that goes from out of it anyways, but she's on the rail and she's near towards the back. I believe she was like, yeah, she's right there last. So there you go. So probably a little bit further than I would have wanted her to be, but at the same time, like with the fractions and the way that he was running, I was like, all right, like this thing might kind of come apart a little bit. And again, it's not like, Dettori's riding her, which, say what you want about him. He's not been great on turf horses, at least here, like in the big stage, right? Like at Del Mar and stuff, he's been fine, but but just never gave her any run whatsoever. But yeah, you go look at Rebels Romance, backed him off a little bit there, but even at the same time, you're still, you go back and watch when he won 2 years ago. It was because he closed out of the cloud. He came running late, and it's like, okay, he's gonna have to do this and hold off a slew of good horses from overseas in the process. So even though you liked him and you got him to be calm here, you're still very concerned, right? That how much of that took out of him early in the race.
Yeah, watching this live, and I was watching with a lot of people, it was like, oof, what happened at the front? How much is that going to affect him? I had people around me with tickets. They didn't necessarily feel super confident. They're like, I like it, but I'm uncomfortable with what I'm seeing. Why is he acting that way? Yeah, it was definitely well put what you said. Definitely going to have to show a lot of heart to get here, you felt at this moment.
Yeah, and even there, I was like, okay, he's got horse. He's holding it still. I don't know. Let's watch him, and then we'll get into some of these other trips. But then here it's like he made, like, this is a great move to kind of separate and say, okay, we're going to try to win this thing right now, and put them away. And look at this, like, just opens up on him by like, golly, 4 or 5. But here we go. You're like, uh-oh. At first you weren't threatened, and you're like, uh-oh, hold on. Yeah, okay, he did. But it went from like, I'm not really worried, like he's got it, but you could tell that early part of that race did take a little starch out of him, right? He didn't have that ability. He kind of, versus him closing, he kind of held on, right? He had to.
Yeah, but and that's where you see, like, look, and you see this all the time in sports, guys who've been to the Super Bowl before, and that might have been what got them that win that day. It's like, well, I've won on the big stage. That's how I felt, at least, Jared, watching him. Like, yeah, that's that champion pedigree.
Well, I thought it was such a good idea for Buick to make that move kind of early and separate. Be like, listen, because he probably knew, like, I probably don't have as much horses I would like late in the race, so let's try to basically run them off their feet now, get that boom. Oh shit, here he goes. And now they have to come. All right. So here's a 2. Look at this 2 stuck on there. I don't know why he never tried to get her off the rail. He obviously was just hoping to something to open up. Nothing, spoiler alert, nothing opens up. The horse has got so much run still here, right here on the inside in the white cap. Like, look at her hitting her head. Nowhere to go. Like, absolutely no. And then as soon as you can see now, boom, now she takes off because there's someone to run, and she's like literally has nowhere to go. I mean, she had gone up the rail. Like, there's no way to say maybe she wouldn't have got there. There's no way to say that how good she was, because she literally never ran in the race,
No, and the other thing too is, I'm not ever going to take anything away from this winner here. What in part helped is the horse he had to beat is flying from the clouds, having to make up so much ground. And if you had a horse that could get through on the rail, get closer, you know what I mean, Jared? This was a perfect setup to give you an opportunity, my point being, for the running style that I think you were looking for from this horse.
This is a good angle here. Look how he's separated. Look at that group. And then, like, the wall, there's just a wall of horses, nowhere to go. These horses have already started their runs. She had nowhere to go. And then once that thing opens up, she has somewhere. She takes off. But again, past that, it's like there's no point, really. So that was frustrating for sure. But again, I don't know that I can sit here and be like, oh, yeah, she was going to beat him, because I thought he ran a really, really good race.
Agree. Great.
All right, let's go to the main event of the day, which was always weird because it was like not the race of the end of the day, so it was like right in the middle of the card. Which was that weird being there and being like, because last year it was that way, but it was like 2 races after that or something, I think. But this one being like smack dab in the middle, was it weird being like, here's the classic, and then, oh, by the way, we've got like 4 other races to go?
It was for me, but the exciting thing is I was there for the My Racehorse horses as well. and they were the third to last in the last race of the day. So I was like, well, I've got some excitement, but you were like, wait a minute, there's that many more coming up after this, even though you know it. I agree, Jared.
Yeah. All right. So race 8, the Breeders' Cup Classic. Again, no introduction needed here. And, this is a very interesting race from the betting standpoint because, up until the very end, like Fierceness wasn't the favorite. And then he finally kind of got that late money and became the favorite. Sierra Leone got bet hard early and like kind of stayed that way, which has kind of been his MO all year. Forever Young. And then, of course, City of Troy were your top choices there. And I think first and foremost, we have to start with, and I'll pull up the replay in just a second, but we have to start with like, what is up with these horses that come in these big races from Japan, particularly, and just set these insane fractions. Like Derma Sotogati goes out to the lead and just fucking blazes, right? And just completely erupts this pace to a 22 and sub 45 half. And you're just like, what is happening? And by the way, Fierceness ran his absolute eyeballs out because this is the horse that was setting off right off of that pace to Derma. Derma finished second to last, and Fierceness damn near won the race. Just ran a huge race considering the pace. But you look at the turn, the far turn, and you're like, uh-oh, here comes Sierra Leone. It was right for a horse to come off the pace. And, man, a horse that could not get the job done all summer long, was clearly second or third best, depending on the race. Stars aligned in the Classic, dude.
Well, first of all, I think you broke that down great. Second of all, after this race was done later that night, I was out at a party and I met the owners of Sierra Leone, and they could not be nicer people. So shout out to them. If by chance they're watching this, you guys are wonderful, wonderful people. They just, I asked them, and, it'd been a tough year, tough, heartbreaking moments, and very, very happy for them. There's a lot to break down in this. This was like a really exciting Classic to talk about because of City of Troy, because of the multiple championships that were on the line. Yeah. I mean, horses like Next. I mean, there's so much. So let's dig in, because if you're watching, you probably want to hear this breakdown. Jared, what were your thoughts coming out of this as far as City of Troy, a horse that there's no shame in liking this horse coming into there? Would you mind discussing a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think you can leave this race much more. I mean, whenever Halsman was asking us in our group chat with John, like, who were our like biggest disappointments, because like he was putting together an article on the site and a video, I was like, I think it's City of Troy. And obviously as a backer, that's why I felt that way. But he was so bad, right? I mean, he didn't break awful, but he didn't break great either. So that was like the first issue. And then, but dude, the moment that the race started, you knew it was over, because the speed that everyone's raving about, like, oh, these, like, we've been working on the speed. He's a fast horse and we're going to get him to the lead. And that's the plan. Dude, he was nowhere close to getting to that lead. Not a chance. I think even if he broke like a rocket, I don't think he was fast enough before that. Let's just say the first time they crossed the wire. I don't think he was ever going to get there to the lead. And just seeing that with some of these horses, I mean, you no way he was going to match up with Derma and Forever Young, and Fierceness. And so to me, he was wildly disappointing. And the other aspect to it is, and Halterman made a point of this too afterwards, was like, listen, there's bad performances, there's bad breaks, there's bad whatever. Like, he never ran, like maybe he comes from, like, I was like, okay, if he is as good as advertised, and clearly maybe he is, but not on dirt. But like he would make some sort of run and kind of pick him, you know what I mean? Like pick him off late and like maybe gets like fifth, and you're like, well, damn, like he ran well, but the pace or whatever, he missed a break. But it was just like the moment the race started, it was over, and he never did any. I mean, dude, Tapit Trice beat him. Okay, like Tapit Trice beat him. That's just so bad, in my opinion.
Well, I'm glad we got to talk about this, because So I'm at the Breeders' Cup and I meet a guy who is an exercise rider for Aidan O'Brien, or was in the past. And he said something and I was like, whoa. I said, you exercise rode for Aidan O'Brien, and City of Troy's in the Classic, and he's lost one race. This was prior to the Classic, right? He's lost one race. And that race, it's famous, if you guys have been following all year, that Aidan's like, this is the best horse I've ever trained, and it's my fault he got beat. I undertrained him. And the guy looks me square in the eyes and he's like, Ryan, that is such bullshit. I said, explain it. He goes, Aidan does not leave a single stone unturned. I'm telling you right now. He's like, I was with him. I was riding one day. Aidan goes, come in here. I get off the horse. I come. He goes, you're riding like shit. What is it? And he was like, I'm startled. And he goes, I broke up with my girlfriend a week ago. He's like, it's showing in your riding. He's like, he doesn't miss a detail. So I'm telling you, Ryan, with this horse, it's just Aidan is such a class guy. He would rather take the blame than lead it onto his horse. So after the race, when this was quoted, I'm going to read you the quote. Trade Aidan O'Brien added about City of Troy. He lost at the start, and obviously I didn't have him prepared to come out quick enough. He missed it and left Ryan no chance, really. The race was over at the start. Okay. My point of reading this is there's no way Aidan didn't have this horse. I find that hard based on what I heard from an exercise rider who personally met him, worked with him, and did that this guy didn't prepare for it. So to anyone who backed this horse, I'm certainly not letting the people that are going to have their victory parade of like Super Bowl slam dunking the ball on the ground after they get into the end zone of like feeling like I was right. But to the people that did back it, you deal with a guy who like did his very best to try to put this horse in a position and truly felt, the point being, Jared, that he would have this fired. The horse fired his best shot on the day. And I think he's just being very classy here and taking the blame and throwing his hands up and kind of going, oh, it's my fault again. And we'll never really know. Obviously, he clearly didn't like it. You know, that's the point. I'm not going to sit here and argue. But look, I don't think, my point being, it's ever bad to go with a trainer like that that is arguably running the best or one of the best horses in the world and thinking he can pull off the impossible. So there's no shame in that as far as it turned out. Now, at the same time, the big discussion here was Forever Young. Is he the horse to beat, or Fierceness, or City of Troy? None of them won. It was Sierra Leone. And I think what really is interesting about Sierra Leone, Jared, is when we're talking about surfaces here, Chad Brown has been saying, look, it's been so unfair for my horse in a sense, the way he's judged on his record, because I don't think he likes Saratoga very much. And if you bought into it, here you watch him do this and you're like, my goodness, is this the same horse that like couldn't get Mystic Dan, couldn't do in the Derby, couldn't, and I'm aware he came from the back, guys, just hear me out here. My point being, it felt like in this race, he finally, there was no excuse here and he didn't need one. And it was so breathtakingly exciting on the track. People lost their mind for this effort. And I'm curious to hear where you're at. If you guys haven't seen, Jared's about to pull up the video. Let's take a look here. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on the championship, Jared, because I mean, champion 3-year-old's crazy now. So let's take a look.
Yeah, it certainly makes it interesting. And this is the start of the race here. And I mean, again, I didn't see anything there that, you knew, you're like, oh, City of Troy, looks like in fourth to last now. It's like, okay, that's not what I signed up for with him. So like that was huge. And the fractions were just like the ride fierce, and Forever Young deserves some credit too, because he was right there and, obviously backed off a little bit. Both Forever Young, if you bet Forever, picked Forever Young, or if you bet Forever Young or Fierceness, it sucks, right? Because they ran kind of how you hope they would have ran. They set off and then they pounced and then they just weren't good enough, because of that pace and obviously Sierra. Dude, it fell together. It couldn't have fallen together better for a horse like Sierra Leone. It just, with the pace set up, and to be fair, like he's gotten better with each start, whether, he was losing. And that's the thing that sucks, is the horse that was just killing him each time is who he beat, right? In Fierceness. So yeah, it does make it very interesting now, the 3-year-old debate. And honestly, like, it's a little bit of a bummer for Fierceness too, who ran a winning race. Look at this, like the way he just separates. He's like, all right. And then you see Sierra Leone, you're like, uh-oh. But at the same time, you're also thinking, can he get it done? You know, like, can he do it? Because like he's been a horse that's kind of spins his wheels, lugs in, all the things. And then you're like, oh, he's doing it today. And there you go. And a lot of credit to Fierceness, who, like I said, he's battling back, man. Like he's like, I'm not giving up the lead, and just unfortunately was a little tired because of that. And then Forever Young gets up and nails Newgate for third there. But there, he finally got the job done. When I look at the comparisons, it's where you. I'll ask you first. Where do you lean towards? Because you're the historian between the two of us. Where do you lean towards when it comes to these 3-year-olds?
Boy, I feel like I go back and forth a lot, Jared. You know what I mean? I'm just going to be honest with you. It's a really, like, I almost feel like this is a pick 'em. I'm not mad if you're picking Fierceness, and I'm not mad if you're picking Sierra Leone. I can see cases for both, right? Like, yeah. I really, really, like, the Fierceness people are right and the Sierra Leone people are right. It's one of those, man. And I know it's weird and it sounds like a cop-out. Personally, I think I would give it today, as we're talking, to Sierra Leone. That's where I'm at with it as of today. But it's one of those ones, man, you wake up in the morning and you go, but Fierceness. But I do feel this was the race you wanted to win. And unfortunately, it was like the one horse in the conversation that probably you needed to worry about winning it. If you wanted to make sure you secured championship, you could not let beat you. He got beat by. You left the door open is my point. I think it can go either way. But I think this is the last moment people are going to remember. And the more they look at it, I think they'll feel better about Sierra Leone as the voting process comes to time to make a decision. What about you?
So I think that it's so here's the thing. I looked at it going into it being like, okay, this is going to be, I don't know. I honestly, the day of, I'll be honest, I was like, I think Fierceness still has it. Like, he just ran too good. And then a day or two later, I looked at it again and looked at the kind of the overall body of work. And I think it's going to be Sierra Leone. It's just a little bit unfortunate for Fierceness because of, how well he ran for the most part all year. But I think you have a couple things. Okay, one, what is his biggest race? The Travers, right? That was his biggest race of the year, Fierceness. I think Classic trumps that, right? And then you have the Jim Dandy, and you've got the Florida Derby. Those were, but he also has the one before the Bluegrass. He has that, and then he has the Bluegrass, and then he also has he finished better than him in the Derby. He damn near won the race versus how he was off the screen. Fiercest. So the body of work, I think Sierra Leone. I think it was close. Like Sierra Leone, no way. He had to win here to win this thing. But I think, and the recency part, like people are going to vote for the Classic. I think, and the head-to-head, right? How can you sit there and be like, he's not horse of the year, or like, I still think Fierce is his 3-year-old of the year, but the horse you voting over him, he just beat him in the Classic, right? So I think it's got to be Sierra Leone.
There you go. And again, I think it's an exciting one because I'm not mad at either. Not mad at either. Let me ask you this. Coming out of this race, there was another championship on the line, in my opinion. Champion Older Dirt Male. And no one's talking about this. They're just like, I don't even want to touch this one, man. Forget it. But boy, I feel like that one, talk about like, wow, just go with God. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, honestly. That is so tough. Newgate hasn't done enough. I
almost feel like National Treasure still has a very good case, and he didn't make it to the Breeders' Cup just because it's like, well, he did so well in his last race, but then he sucked against Arthur's Ride.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, and then it's like, okay, Next was so bad, but like he had a hell of a year, like do you get, I honestly, dude, I mean, he won the Met Mile I think it might be, and that's, dude, let alone come up with 3. Come up with your 3 finalists. Like,
Yeah.
that says and in a nutshell, that says a lot about the year we had and why you're sitting here talking about 3-year-olds finishing 1, 2, 3 in the classic, right? Because it was just that year we didn't have, any strong horses, like Arthur's Ride was a horse that a lot of people talked about, of course he was awful. Next was bad, clearly just didn't, wanted nothing to do with that race. And by the way, I say that, but total respect. I'm glad they ran him, right? He deserved that chance to run that day, I feel like. And so they found out. I wish they would have tried it a race or 2 before this, not trying to end the classic. But what if Tapit Trice is like a finalist?
Yeah, I hear you on it. It's all tough. And shout out to Next. I feel in some ways for those connections, because you owe it to your horse to get that shot. You really do, in that sense of like, if he is good enough and you didn't, you can't live with yourself not doing it. And at the same time, the Breeders' Cup, there's no marathon race. He'd totally win it. And if there was a category for it, it's just this. It's like a horse without a home that deserves that chance to do it. And so, hey, if you're listening out there and you own Next, we're still all fans and racing of the horse. There's no, we're grateful for that opportunity. We were glad to see him. I'll be cheering him on in whatever marathon race he goes into, Jared.
Totally. I mean, again, they did the right thing by trying him, and it didn't work out, but I have a lot of respect for that, and that was good horsemanship to finally do it. All right. By the way, so let's talk. So Fierceness doesn't win, and it's a bummer for him and the connections because he ran a damn good race and a winning race. But yeah, I mean, she won, right? And so Thorpedo Anna as horse of the year, right? It has to be Thorpedo Anna over Fierceness, over, I guess, maybe Sierra Leone, being that I think he's 3-year-old. So I think that's the 3.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that. It's just funny, I was just hearing you, Jared, and I have a question for you. The big talk coming into this Breeders' Cup was how much did the Travers take out of Thorpedo Anna? That was a hard race. And then their next race, she looked tough. Fierceness ran hard in there too, and it's hats off to him is my point too. Like, it's hard to run these hard races. The question with him was, man, that guy can't put 2 back-to-back. He put 3 back-to-back. He ran all but one horse in that race. So hats off to Fierceness too. And again, if he is champion 3, I have no quarrels with it. What a great performance by those horses that we saw in the Travers, and how it came back to be quality all the way.
Yeah, that's what Halter and I were talking about Sunday. It was like, man, talk about, because we were there, for the Travers, and it's like, damn, look at that race. Look at how that race came back. Like the classic and the Distaff, and it's just like these horses were. I mean, just shows you how good of a, and you knew it. Like, you knew after that race, you knew going into the race, but then it lived up to the, you're like, that was a good race. Like, those are good horses, and so the fact that he did it. And by the way, like, would you say it's, like the shtick, and I'm as fault as anybody for giving him like, oh, Fierceness, like, can't trust him. Like, I feel like I kind of felt like maybe we were starting to see it, but like, he is finally he just feels like he's a real horse now, right? Like, he's kind of finally delivering what we thought he was, and then it was like, oh, then the Derby happened, and whatever, like all these kind of up and downs where it's, dude, he had a hell of a summer. And he just, ran huge in the classic.
I agree. And I think right before we got on air, I didn't have time to check, but it sounded like Sierra Leone's coming back and Fierceness is coming back. And, I'm very excited to see them next year. So, sometimes it's exciting to have rivalries, and it looks like we have a really good one heading into 2025.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, because who knows? I mean, we need someone to start taking up on the older horses, right? we don't have any. All right, let's go. Let's run through these here pretty quick. But we did have race 9 up again. The race is like, oh, we got 4 more. The Filly and Mare Turf, and Cinderella's Dream went off as the favorite here, probably deservingly so. But again, because you didn't have a few of those horses and they opted to run in the turf, this race did become very interesting and very tough to kind of come up with one. And Moira, who had, has had a kind of a solid, I'd say, year all around. Moira, the Canadian, got the job done. This was a really cool race to see her win.
Yeah, this was a fairy tale race. For me, Moira's been such a beloved horse in horse racing. I remember when she was running those Triple Crown races up in Canada and the Canadian Triple Crown races. And what a way to go out on top. This was a cool race, man. Very excited for her. And I'm sure everyone bet on her who loves Schitt's Creek. That's all I can say. But yeah, very cool. And hats off to Moira. It's her final race, I believe, from what I read. And looking forward to little Moira's running around one day. Really love that horse.
Someone in the chat was like, something like every time I see that horse, it reminds me of Schitt's Creek, and Magic is like, that's because they named her after her. Like it's a Canadian horse. Like that's why they did it. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, this was awesome. And listen, this was a tough one because I thought I liked Cinderella's Dream here, and it seemed like had the was going to get the job done and just didn't quite. This was a start for me. This little stretch here where it was like bad trips and we having issues at the track. It was just like, man, could not finish the race, but I was happy that Moira did win. Let's go on to the sprint. Here you go. I'll just give it to you. Straight No Chaser. You were there with the connections all week, and my racehorse got the job done. First Breeders' Cup, and look at that, 6-1 won this race. And it's going in, the sprint was a tough one, just on paper, tough to kind of get a read for who would be the horse to stand out. And this horse looked awesome. Yeah,
I work at a company called Big Play Sports, and I wrote an article on this horse. I interviewed Dan Blacker, the trainer, because they're connected with my racehorse, and I interviewed Dan Blacker because I knew I'd be there for my racehorse. My boss owns a large percentage of Seize the Gray, and I'd be partying with them. And the more I looked into it, the more I liked this horse, Jared. So I interviewed Dan. He's a very funny guy, a really phenomenal horseman. And I just felt like this horse had a great shot to win. And what I loved about this story particularly is Dan Blacker's the kind of guy who deserves to have these big horses, because you see what he just did here. And hopefully this is a showcase that gets him much more opportunities. Look, I thought this was an incredible performance. I'm so happy for the people at my racehorse, Michael Behrens, the entire crew, Nick Hines, Joe Moran, who picked him out. And I just feel like you see what this horse means to people. All weekend I was spending time, Jared, with these my racehorse people. And it's like, I'd hear stories about like, my father's sick. He's at home. I've been taking care of him for years, and I needed 2 days off. I came to the Breeders' Cup to see Seize the Gray and Straight No Chaser. I don't even care if they win. I'm just here rooting for a horse I invested a little bit of money in that's making me feel good every time it races in a dark period of my life. And I'm watching them run to the winner's circle and get their picture taken. This can't be bad for racing. Congratulations to Straight No Chaser. Congratulations to my racehorse and the connections. And I'm really, really excited that I got to be there on hand to see this. And I'm excited for Dan Blacker.
This was like just, it had that feel good kind of feel to it, right? Someone that bet a certain horse in Japan named Remake, I think is still running. Although I do see on the screen that they did finally finish, I guess. But this was another, again, after Japan's like, oh, they almost won the turf, and that was a great performance. And then we're like, oh, we're back. We're back to these just shitty performance. I mean, I don't know what I liked Remake a little bit going into this one too. So I was like a little surprised this horse never ran a step. But Straight No Chaser set off the pace, but was there on the pace a little bit, and just kind of a horse that just did his best running late. The sprint is a tough one because it's been historically a race that you can't win gate to wire. You just simply cannot. And I thought he set the perfect trip to get it done.
Absolutely. No, fantastic performance by the winner and runner-up. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that next year, we might see Straight No Chaser again. And I think this was a very good addition to the sprint, Jared. I actually really do.
What are the plans for him? Do you know?
Not sure yet, because this obviously changes it, right? I'm sure they're going to get offered a lot of stud deals and things now. But I think that the hope is to run him again next year. So fingers crossed.
All right, sweet. All right, let's go to the Breeders' Cup Mile. This was probably one of the bigger races I was excited about, honestly, on the day, and particularly I was excited to see Notable Speech. And listen, dude, this was one of the kind of rare instances where a horse kind of got the trip you hoped and got the setup and was right there and just couldn't quite kick home like you're used to seeing from these Euros. Finished third, More Than Looks, though. This was a cool story. A lot of firsts on the week for the breeder in the Breeders' Cup, and More Than Looks gives Sherry DeVoe her first Breeders' Cup win. And this is a horse that came out of the clouds, man.
You couldn't have said it any better. And I think Aaron might have had this as his favorite performance. I can't remember on the video. I know it was top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those ones, like, I think lost in a lot of people's disappointment maybe for Notable Speech or, this one or that. And I get it. The horse wasn't that high odds, but a lot of people might not have been aware. Like, if you go back and watch this race, and I encourage you all to do it, this horse was phenomenal, Jared. This was a really exciting win. One of the better of the Breeders' Cup to me.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the replay right now as we speak. But yeah, it was again, like watching Notable Speech here, like I did, because obviously I had a bet on him. I was like, man, this is like he's about to. I thought he was gonna run away with this thing when they hit the stretch, and just simply kind of spun his wheels a little. And even then, like she or he was not. I always want to say More Than Looks. I don't know why I always want to think More Than Looks is a girl, but didn't think the horse could get there. And man, this horse just shot out a cannon. Just came flying. Johannes finished second, which I thought ran a really nice race as well. Carl Spackler, ended up being bet down to 3-1. Just clearly was not quite good enough for Chad there. But yeah, man, it's this was a race here, and you can see her. She is in 10th and 9th place there. So I mean, well out of this thing. And just comes flying. I think she's like, is she the first horse of that or the last horse of that last pack? I can't tell.
It's hard to see from this angle, but
I think she is. Yeah. So she's right there in the blue silks. And this is just an incredible finish. And again, Notable Speech is sitting there, the blue silks, the Godolphin. And the way this horse kind of veered up, I was like, oh, this horse is going to roll, and just kind of spun its wheels.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say about it there. But I mean, I do hope everybody watching, if you're getting another look here, I mean, watch how this winner just, I don't know. I mean, it's terrifying how wonderful this is scary. How much, look at him go.
Yeah.
Look at this horse go on the outside here. This is one of the, these are elite horses, and and congrats to the trainer. I feel like this is a very exciting showcase win.
It was funny because it was one of those cases for me, like when you have a bet, you know how it is, like when you're wheeling a horse home, and it's like you're like, okay, this being the 6th, you're like, all right, he's gonna get there. He's gonna, it's grinding. He's grinding it, like he's gonna still get there. He's just the way he's doing it. And you're like, you look back, you see the 8, you're like, oh shit, nope, no, he's not gonna win. He went right by him, and that was impressive.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance, and man, what a win for DeVoe, right? I mean, honestly, very excited.
Obviously, a trainer that's had experience with the Breeders' Cup, being with Chad Brown, but getting that first Breeders' Cup win as a trainer was really cool, and she was obviously deservingly so, very emotional. So that was neat. Not that she was emotional, but it was just neat seeing her excited about it. So, all right, this is it. Last one, race 12, the Big Ass Fans Dirt Mile. And this is the perfect race to end on, right? Because it was like who knows? It was had a little bit of the sprint in it, right? Where you're like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of this, like the horses that didn't want to run in the classic and now they're here. And then a horse like Full Serrano, who ends up winning, is like a horse that you thought was pretty good. But at the same time, you're like, well, I don't know. Maybe the cutback, certainly so. But you hate sometimes when it's the first race back, you just don't know what they're going to do. And man, honestly, dude, I thought Full Serrano looked like, I thought it was a very impressive effort.
I completely agree. I don't even have much to say on other than that. I thought it was a very impressive effort. I was there kind of focusing on Seize the Gray, who, it just wasn't his day. It wasn't this. It's been a long year. But also, it's funny. I was thinking about with Seize the Gray, because some people listening might have parts of that horse. It was funny. I was thinking how much I remember, Jared, you, Aaron, and I being down at Del Mar to watch his father Arrogate run, and he didn't have too much love for this surface ever. So maybe the sins of the father don't fall too far from the son, or whatever they say. I don't know. It's just, I'm certainly not why, but it's just, here I am again watching a son of Arrogate have trouble at Del Mar, and
it's like having vivid flashbacks to that day. But yeah, he never really, he never really like got a call, really. He didn't.
No, not.
It was like, you almost like after the race was over, you were like, oh yeah, I forgot he was running. Like it was. He really did not. It wasn't. Wasn't his day. And honestly, he's a horse that obviously not. I guess it wouldn't have happened because of who won the Classic, but going into the day, he had a chance at 3-year-old honors. Caesar Gray did, because if a random horse, not one of the Fierce Sisters, Leone, would have won the Classic, and he won this race, then you could have made a case for him being 3-year-old honors. Obviously, that did not happen. But yeah, Post, a lot of love for Post Time. Didn't quite get the job done there. But yeah, this was I mentioned it in the chat or in the live before. I was a little worried about Full Serrano as far as like if you played against him, because just the way he had looked prior to. I mean, I thought he ran a hell of a race when he stretched out, but it wasn't quite able to hold on. But the horse is like, hey, if he can get back to the way he was running before that, I think he could be very dangerous. And obviously, he loves Del Mar. Set a great trip. I thought Muth was in a perfect spot here. I thought Muth, outside there sitting off. Muth is and by the way, let's add one more thing. Saudi Crown not on the lead. That was an interesting option as well.
Yeah, absolutely worth calling out. It's interesting, Muth, what a journey he's had. Last year's Breeders' Cup, he was runner-up to Fierceness. You see what Fierceness goes on to do. Yeah, Shoddy's throwing up the trash can sign with Muth.
Ouch.
In the chat over there. But yeah, it's just, here we turn for home. What went through your head, Jared, as the winner in those iconic silks now from Flightline's connections starts making moves? What's going on with you live?
Honestly, I for a second I thought, okay, Muth is going to be, he's right there. Like I could see him grinding this out, and then Full Serrano's not coming back to them. So I'm like, oh shit. And I start scanning back to see who is coming, and look at Post Time. I thought, oh my gosh, look at this horse flying late, because you can tell Full Serrano's getting a little tired here. But yeah, just good enough to win. And I think that's a nice horse. I really do. I think Full Serrano is a nice. I don't know what they've said about him, for the rest of the year or for next year. But I think he is now that they've kind of found where he needs to run, he seems like he could be a big time player in this, in a division that is hard to read most of the year, most of the time. I think he is got a solid future if they decide to continue to run him at this distance.
Absolutely. And shouts out to John Sadler and team, and shouts out to the Dormans again, who handed off the winner trophy, because this was the Dirt Mile, which obviously Cody's Wish will always be remembered for his incredible performances in back-to-back years. And yeah, I mean, that caps off the Breeders' Cup right there, Jared, right? I mean, that's the story of it. It's sort of an interesting one, because when you look at it as we've just done there's some wonderful moments, wonderful performances, and then storylines that were leading into it that just sort of took left turns at the very last part. It's like, some of these horses, it was a lot like the Olympics, where you watch these gymnasts do these incredible flip routines and then just don't stick the landing, and you're like, oh, that was hard to watch.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of good stuff there too. There was a lot to take away from this.
All right, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. Maybe I did tell you what we're gonna talk about a little bit, so maybe you've got something planned. But would you say what was your best of the 2 days? What was your best performance or best? You can I'll even allow a moment, just best like part of the Breeders' Cup, and like biggest bummer, biggest disappointment that sucked. That I couldn't believe that horse did that or whatever. What would you say?
Why don't we trade off with disappointment first? And I'm gonna. Would you mind? Like, let's start there. For me, I'll start with Japan. I think Japan as a whole, it was a big disappointment. I was very excited. I felt they sent over their best contingent, and I felt it was a bit of a letdown to see them not walk away with any hardware. That would be my biggest disappointment.
Yeah, mine's a tie. Can I'll say I'll lean towards Cogburn. I think it could be. I was going to say City of Troy or Cogburn. Why it'd be City of Troy? Because of all the hype. He was the favorite of the morning line favorite and of the classic, and you knew it was over in a second. And then for City of Troy, for Cogburn, I think that's the biggest one because if you would have stopped that race at the turn, top of the stretch, he was. 1 to 9 doesn't even safely say what he should have been. Like he just no way he loses it from there. And so I think that was the biggest disappointment for me. And just it was kind of a letdown because it was early in the card, and it was like, oh crap, that guy lost. Like so, I would say him losing. So, what's your best one?
For me, my favorite moment personally would be Straight No Chaser, but overall, I'm going to give this one to Thorpedo Anna. I just felt very happy for this horse who had brought me so many great moments throughout the year, Jared. I mean, that Travers was so exciting. So I was very happy she walked away with Horse of the Year. I feel like she deserved it.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to piggyback, but I think it's pretty easy, really, that she was the moment of the Breeders' Cup because anytime that you have a Horse of the Year honors on the line kind of, and then obviously she's going to win it. And she won her race, and she did it pretty dominating. And just the year she's had, and just kind of all. I don't know if you. I know you did, but at least where we were on the air, you could tell like when she came back. How like was in Yada, they'd always like she would trot back, and the crowd would erupt and everything. And they did that, right? The crowd erupted when she came back, and that's just they do that a lot, right? At the Breeders' Cup because it is the Breeders' Cup, but with her it's special because I think people know what kind of like how big of a horse she is. And the year she's had, my goodness, like a horse that I was going back and looking, like I didn't even have her in my top 4 in the Oaks, like I played against her in the Oaks and look at her now. She's Horse of the Year. And so it's just incredible the run. And even after she won the Oaks, you're like, well, who knows? Like McPeek, will she ever get back to that form? And maybe it was a slop and this and that. And it's like, no, she's a freak of nature. And I think it culminated at the Breeders' Cup. And so, yeah, that would be mine as well. So that one it was a little bit of a silver lining. Then we got to Sierra Leone, and then it was like, oh shit, now we're back. So, do you think? Would you? I didn't really ask you this earlier, but do you think? Because there was some chatter in the live about she tried it against the boys, she lost, but she ran totally respectable, but. Then they ran her in the Distaff. And, with Zenyatta, they ran her in the Distaff first. And then they went to the Classic the next year and the year after, obviously. So do you think with Thorpedo Anna, like, obviously, we're a year away, essentially. But do you think, like, you'd be like, hey, Classic would be our goal for her? Like, get her to the Classic, especially in a year that we've established we don't have older horses. Obviously, the older horses that she'd be facing are the 3-year-olds now who she's ran against or beat. Or damn near beat with fierceness. So do you think Classic, like, would you even address that with her again? Or do you think it's just Distaff and on every year that she's running?
Wow. Well, here's what's so great about that question, Jared, and chat or people that are watching this on replay, please put your comments in the YouTube comments or anywhere. Here's what's so great about that question. She's proven she could beat both Sierra Leone and Fierceness. And at this very second, those look like the 2 horses coming back next year that are going to be favorites for the Classic. And man, if you're talking about how do I build a legacy with Thorpedo Anna, being back-to-back female Horse of the Year, that hasn't, since they've started Horse of the Year Eclipse Awards, ever happened. I think that would carve out a niche in history that is just almost too tempting. And what's great is with McPeek, this guy is not afraid to go for a challenge. And if you're coming back next year, and I think it plays out a certain way, Jared, I absolutely think you give a hard look to that Breeders' Cup Classic. And that's exciting. Great question. Would you agree? What are your thoughts?
Totally. I think there's no reason you don't, right? I mean, there's like you won Horse of the Year this year. You won the Kentucky Oaks. You won the Distaff. I mean, you won all the races, right? I don't think you can't run the Travers right next year. I guess you could try the Whitney or something, but like to me, it's like it's the Classic, right? I think you work your way to the Classic, and like you said, like what are you afraid of, right? Like you beat or you either almost beat or you did beat anyone that you'd be that would be coming essentially, right? We'll find out, obviously a long ways away, but yeah, I totally would. I think that's the play, and that's awesome if we have a horse that, because it's tough when you don't have an older horse to root for necessarily to be that, like, there's no the flight line or whatever. But yeah, I mean, if you're like, hey, it has a little Zenyatta feel to it where it's like the girl against the boys, she's going to do it again here. And that would be awesome. And she's like, again, easy horse to root for.
I agree. I'm very excited. And I think it's weird because I think this is a year where racing won, because very rarely do we get to see our stars come back the next year. And if Thorpedo Anna, Sierra Leone, Forever Young, Fierceness, I mean, there's quite a bit coming back, and the younger crop looks very nice too. It really does look like a promising crop. Again, what if East Avenue is the horse they said he was before this, and he comes back and looks like a beast? I mean, yeah. I'm not trying to, but I'm saying I think we could be in for a very, very fun 2025 as race fans.
Yeah, like that's the thing about, I would be more like, I still think even though he didn't run well, Chancer, I mean, they're going to give him at least another try. But I also, like with East Avenue, like he's got an excuse, right? I mean, whether or not you believe he should have ran better or not, like that's another debate. But I do think like those are horses that will be on the Derby trail, right? And then obviously we talked about Baffert, and at least two of them will probably be on the Derby trail. And so yeah, I do think we got a nice crop of horses shaping up for the Derby. And hey, Bob Baffert can run. That's exciting in itself. So all these, well, there's 10 entered, 2 can get points or whatever. It's like, no, we can actually all get points. So that's going to be fun, and a fun little twist. Well, I guess it shouldn't be a twist, but it is. It's a little out of the norm. So that'll be fun as well. But guys, that is a wrap on the Breeders' Cup from 2024. All right, guys, that's all the time we have. Make sure you check us out over at racingdudes.com for our free picks and our premium selections on the products page. Click that Get Racing Dudes premium button at the menu at racingdudes.com to learn more. Thank you to everybody who got the betting Bible. We had so many people that were part of that. John Wyatt was a part of it this year. It was super. I mean, listen, maybe we weren't as successful as we hoped we would be as far, but what'd you say? John, myself, and Halterman. What was it Halterman said? We combined for 5 winners.
Yeah, each of you guys had, was it combined or was it each?
I think it was the top, we all tied with 5 winners. Like, yeah. Out of and just like insane, right? I mean, it's like John White, myself, Halterman, like it was just a tough card, but we had a lot of people that, whether in the chat, on the lives, or emailed us saying, hey, like you meant you had this horse listed, or I wouldn't have used this horse without this, and I hit the pick 5 or whatever. And so we had, the way we've structured this betting Bible, it is, you can go view it now that it's over. Like it's free. You can go, if you have an account, you can download it. The way we've structured the betting Bible now is better than it's ever been. And it has a little bit of feature for everyone, whether it be workout patterns, pace analysis, just simple plays. If that's all you want it for, boom, it's got that. It's got AI picks. John, had picks in it as well. So it's got a little bit of everything. And I think I haven't asked John, but I imagine we'll have him for the Pegasus as well. So we'll see the Pegasus coming. And that's an interesting little flavor as well. I wonder who's going to be pointing, because a lot of times the Pegasus is like, national treasure or something. I don't know, like who would be pointing to that race even.
Gosh,
he's even available.
I do know one thing though. I used your guide I came out ahead, and I loved what you guys are doing, Jared, as a personal fan of your guys and as a fan of the guide too. I mean, I think you guys have mastered it. This is like, it's the guide you dream of, right? As a bettor, because it's a build your own adventure guide. I was having trouble one day. I'm like, where do I go? Where's their strongest opinions? And you guys bailed me back out. So I want to thank you for that too, man. I really appreciate it.
And that's the idea, right? Because it was like, from the first like there's been so many versions of that, whether it been the wagering guides to the betting Bible, but like at first it started off where it was like way too content heavy, like words, and then it went to it's way too specific, like it's just boom, this is the play, that's all that's all we list is just what we're playing. To now it's like you said, build your own adventure. That's I might coin that. Like build your own adventure, Ryan Stillman. But no, like because it is, it's like, hey, if you simply just want picks, well, yeah, it's got it. If you want to use the workouts, like Shadi said, that loves the workout reports, like whatever it is, it's got a little bit of something for everybody, whether it be a experienced player all the way to just, hey, I needed picks for the race, and I don't know anything, I'm just here with my friends, like I bought that. So it's got a little bit of everything. So hopefully I do feel like we've honed in on the perfect kind of recipe there. So appreciate everybody that got that. And again, we'll be doing that again for not just the Breeders' Cup, but all the big races in 2025. That seems weird to say. We're on Twitter at @racing_dudes, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can go check out Blinkers Off episodes by visiting our podcast page, or go to YouTube, search Racing Dudes. You can find all episodes there, or just go search us on Apple Podcasts, and we are on there as well. All the places you listen to podcasts, we are there. The Magic Mike show was live earlier. They did Del Mar. I believe they did Del Mar pick 5 for Saturday, so make sure you go check out if you want some analysis and picks for this weekend's racing. Ryan, it's great to have you on. Any final words as you want to leave the fans here for the Breeders' Cup and just everything in general? By the way, we do have the draft coming up in like a little over a month.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited. I'll say this for the fans. You guys are some of the best fans in the world. When I went to the Breeders' Cup, I'm on here occasionally. It's like, you're the guy from Racing Dudes. You guys are wonderful. Thanks for being such supporters of the Racing Dudes, because they really do make this sport, which we all love, even more fun. And I'll leave it with this. 2024 was a crazy year. It had such exciting moments. Thorpedo Anna coming to the Travers comes to mind. Cogburn's highlights next. And I think, guys, if you love racing, it does look like, to me, we're set up for an even better 2025. And let's run it back. Let's get some of these horses that might not have put that exclamation mark. We got some unfinished business. And isn't that the best thing in all of sports, where it's like, no, we lost this year. I'm coming back to show you I'm the man. Let's run it back with all these three. Let's go. 2025 is the year. There
you go. It's very awesome that we have, like, horse of the year. And they're like, oh, even before the horses won, it's like, no, we're coming back. Like we still got things to do here, and Bob Baffert is going to come out, whether you like him, love him, hate him, whatever. He's going to come back with a vengeance, and he won't say that, but we know he will. And we'll have all kinds of horses and options, and he's going to have as many horses as he can get at Churchill Downs. And so, it's going to be a really fun January to April as we make the run up to the Kentucky Derby. So lots to look forward to, guys. But Ryan, as always, you're the man. Appreciate you having you on. I'm Jared Welch. He's Ryan Stillman. I guess Halterman will be back. Honestly, I don't know when he's going to be back. I'll have to check. You may not be. You may have to be on next week. I don't know for sure. So just FYI. He's Ryan Stillman. Good luck this weekend, and hope everyone had a great Breeders' Cup. See you guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Blinkers Off. Join our horse racing community at racingdudes.com and follow us on Twitter at @racing_dudes. Want to make money betting horses? Bet with the Racing Dudes.